What do you say, everybody? With Kyle Henderson, I'm Mick Gillespie, and we're going to talk college football playoff rankings. This is Bama Insider on YouTube, and we appreciate all of you guys for joining us tonight as we expect Alabama to be the number one team in the country. Where's Notre Dame going to be? Where's Clemson? Where's Ohio State? We're going to get into all that as well. So as you watch on YouTube, thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and for those of you who are listening to the podcast right now, we appreciate it, whether it's Apple or Spotify. Look, 5 stars we're expecting from all of you guys. And whether you're an Alabama fan, whether you're a Notre Dame, Clemson, Florida, whatever team you cheer for, we appreciate you being here with us tonight. I'm Mick Gillespie. Kyle Henderson's my partner. Kyle, we got a lot going on, National Signing Day, but right now we're waiting on the college football rankings, the playoff rankings to be announced, and we'll kind of break that down here.
Yeah, and happy to be here. Happy to be talking about college football. I mean, it's pretty incredible that this coming Sunday we'll actually know the field of 4 going into this. And I think the field of 4 right now, kind of the graphic that we have on the screen. I mean, you have Notre Dame and Clemson playing in the ACC championship. You have Alabama taking on Florida in Atlanta for the SEC championship. And then you have Ohio State taking on Northwestern in the Big Ten championship. So a lot of moving parts right now. But I think kind of when you look at everything kind of going into this, these are the 4 teams that right now look to be in the field of 4. Are they the best field of 4? I guess that's what we'll kind of debate and get your feedback on tonight. I mean, a lot of people kind of have their eyes on the team on the far right, Ohio State, and they're only 5-0. And we'll put up the kind of the team comparisons here in a second, and then we'll have an updated graphic with the top 10 playoff rankings. But Notre Dame 10-0, Alabama 10-0, Clemson with only 1 loss, which was to Notre Dame, and then Ohio State currently at 5-0 on the season.
Yeah, and I have a problem. I'm going to tell you right now, I have a problem with Notre Dame, with Ohio State not playing as many games as Notre Dame and Alabama and Clemson, but yet they're getting the pass. They're getting put in the top 4 with 5 wins. And I'm not saying that they wouldn't have gone undefeated, but they didn't go undefeated. All they did was play 5 games. It's not their fault. Their commissioner has not done a great job this year. They've had to deal with politics, external things. They wanted to play. Their quarterback wanted to play, and I respect that, and I think that helps them in the minds of the people voting because Ohio State has stated from the beginning that they want to play. But at the same time, if you're Texas A&M and you lost to number 1 Alabama, but you've played a schedule, or you're Florida and you've lost twice, you lost twice, but you played those games, so there has to be some sort of penalty that it's like this in baseball. And I'm at Smokies Stadium right now. This is the Cubs AA stadium. Spent many years working here as the play-by-play guy. So I'm here to do our tailgate show from Old Forge Distillery on Friday. So you're looking at my set right here. But if you're in a batting chase, and you know what I'm talking about, Kyle, you played baseball, and one guy has more at-bats, way more at-bats than, say, the second guy, or maybe the guy with the best average has a lot less at-bats than the guy in second. When it gets to the end of the season, if they don't have enough at-bats to qualify, there's a formula where they take, they automatically give you outs, a penalty, so that it kind of corrects your batting average, so that it's in the batting average. Obviously, you have to have enough at bats. They take the at bats that that the average league people have and players have, and then and kind of figure out the formula there. So you do pay a penalty. Ohio State hasn't paid a penalty. They've played half the games, and you can't tell me that this is a program that doesn't lose games they're favored in. And they're going to be favored in all their games. But, you remember Purdue, you remember Iowa in seasons where they were ranked in the top 5 and undefeated. And so they're the team in this mix that really bothers me. But you know what? They're playing in a championship game this weekend. The league made a special exemption because they hadn't played enough games to get them in. Notre Dame and Clemson are playing each other. So who knows what's going to happen? If Clemson blows out Notre Dame, which is kind of what I think is going to happen, maybe Notre Dame doesn't even make the college football playoff ranking next time, right? And then it's a moot point, because then you would look at Ohio State and go, well, I mean, I know I haven't played enough games. They'd have 6 games at that point, but Notre Dame out, maybe Texas A&M gets in. But the other team is Cincinnati. I'm curious to see what Cincinnati's going to look like. You know, they haven't played a lot of games lately, and it's because of COVID. You know, so they're playing this week. They were supposed to play Tulsa last week. They didn't. They're playing Tulsa this week in the conference championship game. And if they win that game, you know, they've beaten, 3 ranked teams this year. If they beat Tulsa, who's 24th, you know, do they deserve to be put in this mix? And if there was a year where you kind of give one of the teams that's outside of the Power 5 a shot, Kyle, I feel like this is the year. So I'm interested in seeing exactly what the committee spits out today. I'm really figuring that the top of this list isn't going to change much with Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson and Ohio State, or Ohio State and Clemson, then Texas A&M. I'm guessing that Cincinnati's behind them, and I feel like those are the teams that have the legitimate shot. Florida beats Alabama. Is there a chance that they get in with 2 losses? I think it's still going to be tough. I think Alabama would still get in even with a loss to Florida, but I know Alabama fans are hoping that they don't have to find that out.
Well, currently the rankings were at 15 through 11, and you have Indiana at 11. Then you have North Carolina at 15. Number 12, Coastal Carolina at 11-0 on the season. 13, USC at 5-0, and then Northwestern at 6-1. So as soon as we have an updated graphic, I'll add that right here to Bama Insider. We already know who's going to be 1 through 5. I would assume it's going to be Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, Ohio State, and Texas A&M, kind of the way that the teams have been slated throughout the past couple weeks. I'm curious to kind of see where Florida kind of falls after their loss to LSU. So just give me a second, and then I'm going to get that graphic. But they have number 10 right here, Oklahoma, at 7-2 on the season. Looks like they moved up 1 ranking. And then, like I said, as soon as we have a fresh graphic, then we can kind of kick the ball back and forth with 1 through 10.
Yeah, the truth of the matter, though, is that once you get past Cincinnati, this thing gets very murky, because I don't think that those teams have a shot to even swim their way in. Now, if Cincinnati were to lose to Tulsa and Texas A&M, maybe they lose to Tennessee, then all of a sudden you start looking at some of these other teams with 2 losses. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it could get interesting, but to me, it really feels like Ohio State's not going to play really any competition this year besides Indiana. And then, Texas A&M will blow out Tennessee. So I think they're kind of sitting there with Cincinnati. Cincinnati's the team with the toughest game, really. I mean, if you want to get into it, playing Tulsa.
They currently have Cincinnati. The playoff committee currently has them at number 9, and they have Georgia currently at 7-2 at number 8. Those are just in. We're stuck on 8 right now. Yeah,
and so I guess you know what, that kind of answers the question on Cincinnati too. They don't have a lot of respect for Cincinnati. They didn't have a lot of respect for BYU, and I get the fact that these teams like Georgia, Ohio State, although the Big Ten this year has not been very good. But think about how tough this schedule is, where you play all these conference games in the SEC this season. And, what is it? Stone sharpens stone? Is that it? Or steel sharpens steel? I don't know.
Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron. Let's go ahead and get our producers to cut that out. But you know what I mean. It's like, you're getting in there and you're playing the best of the best. I feel like this SEC season that there are a lot of good teams. And I feel like the lower teams like LSU, I mean, this is a really stinky LSU team. But you know what? They went out there on the road and beat Florida. Now, Kyle Pitts wasn't in the game, but still, you can't take that away from them. And that was a week after they got just dismantled by Alabama.
Yeah, so currently from rankings 10 through 6, you have Oklahoma at the number 10 spot. You have Cincinnati, who's currently undefeated at number 9. You have Georgia at number 8. You have Florida, who fell a spot. They are number 7. And then we're stuck on 6 right now. So I would assume it's Iowa State, right, who they had up there. I think there were 7 or 8 last time. And then, like I said, 1 through 5 should be the same. So it's kind of comical to look through. And just like you were saying, kind of once you get past Georgia, I mean, those teams they're out of these playoffs. I mean, there's nothing that's going to happen this coming weekend that's going to really drastically change where some of these teams kind of jump up. Even in a worst case scenario, I don't think Cincinnati climbs into the playoffs anyway. I mean, they're just, they're at number 9 right now. And I'm glad to kind of see where the committee is ranking these guys. But let's kind of just find out what this top 6 is, and then we can kind of debate it a little bit more. And I want to get your take inside the comment box about Ohio State. I mean, currently 5 games that they have played during this season. Best win is currently against Indiana. They'll have another opportunity in the Big Ten championship game against Northwestern. And wouldn't that be something if Northwestern is able to somehow pull up the upset against Ohio State? I mean, let's face it. I mean, we've seen a small sample size of Ohio State. They've looked good. They've looked okay. At times, I'm not completely sold on them. Northwestern has a salty defense. I'm not going to take Northwestern over Ohio State, but I'm just saying, I mean, stranger things have happened.
Right. Yeah, well, I don't know.
Because I think then, do you just simply slide up Texas A&M into that number 4 spot? Is it that easy if Ohio State was to lose? Wouldn't you think? If everything kind of stays the same, let's just say Alabama wins, they beat Florida, Clemson beats Notre Dame. So then you just reverse. You put Clemson at that number 2 spot, Notre Dame at number 3, and then number 4 would be Texas A&M. Is that how you'd have it, or would you have Texas A&M at the number 3 and Notre Dame at the number 4?
Yeah, and see, I don't know. I might not have Notre Dame in. I mean, I don't know why we have to put Notre Dame in if they lose. I mean, I don't feel like Notre Dame's been this overwhelming juggernaut. It's not like they're destroying their competition like Alabama's done. They beat Clemson, and Clemson was out without Trevor Lawrence. And last time I checked, he's going to be the number 1 pick in this year's NFL draft. He's the highest rated player in college football. So, I guess I look at it and I say, well, okay, Notre Dame's a good team, but I mean, I don't look at them and say that they have to be in. I think with Alabama, the fact that Alabama has bludgeoned the ranked teams that they've played the toughest schedule. They've played, teams with winning records. They've played ranked teams. And I'm not just saying that because we cover Alabama. I'm saying that because it's the truth. Alabama has played the tough schedule and they've won. They've beaten teams, and I think that I could see them losing and getting in. But I don't. And I think part of it that helps out is that it's a really weak field behind Clemson. I got questions about Ohio State. I got questions about whoever wins the Clemson Notre Dame game. Yeah, but then the loser of that game, should they get lose and get right into the playoff? And here's a look at it right now. Texas A&M has been on a roll. I don't know how Iowa State has gotten so high. I mean, last time I looked, they lost to Louisiana and not LSU. They lost to Louisiana. I mean, come on. Florida's 7, which tells me that they do have a legitimate shot to get in if they beat Alabama, even when they lost to LSU.
I mean, that was. I'm really puzzled by Iowa State at 6. It's kind of freaking me out right now. And my kind of worst case scenario is one of these teams from the Big 12 kind of creeps back in this for some reason. And you were saying kind of that you didn't have Notre Dame, and let me update that graphic real quick. That
I don't understand that either.
That you didn't have Notre Dame in there, but it's just I don't know. I mean, I think you have to have Notre Dame in that top 4. But then again, I look to some of their games that they barely won this season. I don't know. I mean, I think everything falls out this way. I mean, and I guess a lot depends on the score between Notre Dame and Clemson, right? I personally think that Clemson's going to take it to Notre Dame. They're currently a 10-point favorite in that game. I'm definitely taking that. So the way I have it, and I'll get an updated graphic in just a second. What
if Notre Dame just wears those guys out, though? That would be – I haven't heard anyone say, "Hey, you know what? Notre Dame's going to just destroy Clemson this time."
No, I don't think they're going to. I think a couple of reasons. I think number one, Clemson's angry, right? I mean, this team wants to prove that they're still at the top of the college football mountain, right? I mean, these guys were the last team to really take it to Alabama. I mean, we all saw that in the national championship game, and they have the same quarterback that beat Alabama and Trevor Lawrence. A lot of people aren't talking about Trevor Lawrence. He really hasn't. He's kind of fell out of the college football playoff discussion, the college football talk. And, we've talked about this before. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, the guy is, he's still the number one draft pick in 2021. So I think he has kind of his shining moment against Notre Dame. I even think he jumps back into the Heisman Trophy conversation after that performance. I think Notre Dame is good, but I don't think they're as good as the TV networks want them to be. Now, I think when you look at this from kind of a revenue standpoint, TV networks want Alabama at the 1 spot and Notre Dame at the 4 spot. That would be TV ratings goldmine, right? But the truth of the matter is Notre Dame really the 4th best team? Are they one of the top 4 teams? I mean, we're going to find out, I guess, on a Saturday just how good they are. And if they beat Clemson, then they're going to be the number 2 spot. And, we'll kind of move on to there. And then we can talk about if Clemson, should be up there, or if Ohio State, depending on what happens with them. But Notre Dame has a lot to prove on Saturday to me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's going to be a lot of Trevor Lawrence and a lot of Travis Etienne, and they're going to have a tough time stopping either one of them. I think Notre Dame will do some stuff, but it won't last. And I could be wrong. I mean, and that's what makes, this weekend really exciting. Alabama and Florida, if Kyle Pitts is in there for Florida, they're a different team. Obviously, they were missing him, one of the most dynamic players in college football. And yeah, there you go. You look at the graphic. Ohio State, I mean, that's, and I get it. They're not the ones that canceled these games, but Nebraska's not good. Penn State's really, really bad, and they barely beat them. Rutgers is no good. Maryland got canceled. I would have liked to have seen Talia play against them. Indiana, they had a 35-7 lead and had to hold on for dear life. Illinois is canceled. Michigan State, awful. They killed them. And Michigan, a lot of people feel like Michigan was going to get COVID knowing what was coming to them that Saturday. I don't know if I believe that or not, but another canceled game, and they got 5 wins. You go over to Clemson, and, Clemson looks like a really good team to me. The games that they struggled were Syracuse, or check that, Boston College, and Notre Dame. And they were the games that they didn't have Trevor Lawrence. Remember that. They came from behind big against Boston College, and then Notre Dame, they lost in overtime. And then as soon as Trevor Lawrence came back, they started to crush the competition again. Their defense isn't as good as it's been in the past, but when they have Trevor Lawrence, they're capable of beating anyone. And then you look at Notre Dame, and I mean, a couple games stand out to me. The 12-7 win over Louisville, that's a head scratcher. They struggled against Georgia Tech, pulled away late. They about the same exact game against Boston College that Syracuse had. And I thought that the North Carolina game was a really good win for them, 31-17. North Carolina's not physical, but they're a good football team. You saw what they did to Miami. So I give them credit for that one and Clemson. And then, they've polished off Syracuse, and then they canceled the last games for both of those teams to set up the championship.
Yeah, I think when I look at the schedules, and I'll start with Alabama, I mean, you look at kind of where this team was at the beginning of the season, and you look at where they are now. I mean, look at that game against Missouri. It wasn't the prettiest game, right? We are all kind of like, really? This is kind of the Alabama team. Missouri scored some late points in that one, but it wasn't a complete game. Same thing against, I would say, Ole Miss. You look at the Texas A&M game. I thought they played a pretty good game. Now looking back on it, considering that Texas A&M's only lost 1 game, I mean, it looks that much better. Ole Miss, remember that's been a shootout. But Nick Saban said that these teams have had some crazy games with Ole Miss, and this was another one, right? 63-48 against Lane Kiffin. So it's kind of like every so often that happens. Alabama had 750 yards of offense in that game. But you look at kind of from Georgia to now, I mean, this team has really transformed on both sides of the on both sides of the football. And remember, against Tennessee, they lost Jalen Waddle. And I think they had to find some sort of rhythm to continue that offensive potency. And they found that simply with Devontae Smith and the continued high performance of Najee Harris, who has over 20 rushing touchdowns. And then you look at kind of their defense, right? Let's kind of zoom in. 17 points against Tennessee, 0 against Mississippi State, 0 against Kentucky, 13 against Auburn. One of the lone touchdown came in the fourth quarter. They put up 45 points of offense against LSU in that first half, and then 38 points of offense against Arkansas in that first half. So this team is a buzzsaw right now. And I think going into Florida, 14-point favorite, I take those points all day long. I think they're really going to give it to Florida. I just don't see that Florida has the defense, and I think they're one-dimensional on offense. So that's kind of my take there. When I look at Notre Dame, same thing with you. Louisville, that game really jumps out to me. Even the game against Duke, right? Even the game against Florida State. I mean, there's a lot of kind of question marks I have, and I get that. That's at the beginning of the season. But I want to give them, some credit. I think the game against North Carolina, who I think is a very good team, we saw them really take it to Miami. I mean, the game was 31-17, and a game that I watched and really took a close eye on the quarterback. And I thought he's very talented. I mean, he's very slippery. I thought beating North Carolina, that's definitely a solid win. It jumps out to me. And then you got Clemson. And just like you were saying, I mean, you look at the Boston College, they had to come back to win that game, lost Notre Dame in double overtime, both games without Trevor Lawrence. But with Trevor Lawrence, look at what they've done to the rest of the competition. I mean, they've put up almost over 40 points in every single game that he's been a part of besides that Wake Forest game. So the only team that we kind of, really have question marks about is on the team on the far right, and that's Ohio State. I mean, they were losing to Nebraska early in the first quarter. They beat a lifeless Penn State. Rutgers, I mean, come on. Maryland, we're all waiting to see that game against Maryland.
Rutgers. Come on, Kyle.
Well, and so is Kyle Flood, who's the offensive line coach here at Alabama. Talia was playing fantastic. That game got canceled. Indiana, that's kind of like their lone win right now. And that was 42-35. I mean, where would Indiana be in the SEC? I don't know, right? I mean, would Ole Miss beat Indiana? I think 100% yes. I
just, the body of work for Ohio State bothers me. I think they're a good team, and I know they have a lot of talent. I know they have the 5-star guys, but I just look at the body of work, and it's hard for me to figure out where they stack up right now because they just haven't played the schedule. We know who Alabama is. I mean, you just went through that schedule. I mean, look at the beatdowns that they've put on teams, Texas A&M and Georgia. I mean, these are like convincing wins. Kentucky's a good team, and Alabama crushed them. Auburn, I mean, Nick Saban might have gotten Auburn's coach fired. I don't know if you saw this, Kyle, but Auburn fired their head coach, and they're trying to find the next guy that's going to be down there, and it's not going too well from what I'm reading. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was a 42-13 win, and then a 55-17 win, and then 55-13. Alabama's who we all thought they would be and better. Notre Dame, they've been tested. They're not as dynamic, explosive as Alabama, but they're consistent. They've got players, on both sides of the ball. Clemson's Clemson when they got Trevor Lawrence. It feels like, to me, honestly, if you forgot about the records, I would say Alabama 1, Clemson 2, and then Notre Dame 3 and Texas A&M 4 and Ohio State behind Cincinnati. But that's not the way that this committee's looking at it. The fact that Iowa State is ranked that high tells me that there's some shenanigans going on at this committee. I don't understand how they could be so high after losing to Louisiana. I know Louisiana's a good team, and they're kind of one of the surprises in college football. But Iowa State doesn't belong that high. It just seems like every year with this thing to try to push this Big Ten. Right, all of a sudden you turn around and there they are. Right? Are they? I don't know. I
want to kind of do some rapid fire with you, Mick, before we get out of here. I'm just going to show some.
I'm in Big 12, by the way. Sorry.
I'm going to show some graphics up on the screen.
Yeah.
And you kind of give me your take on the matchup. So the first matchup is taking place this weekend. Okay.
Yeah.
So we got Florida and Alabama in the SEC championship. Your take, and then I'll give you mine on this SEC matchup.
But I think that Alabama's got to be careful. I mean, I think Florida's coming in. They're a wounded animal right now. They're cornered. They gave one away to LSU. They didn't have Kyle Pitts. If Alabama could jump on these guys early, though, it could end up being a really long Saturday for the Gators. But if this one turns into a game and a track meet, which is what Florida really wants, I think Alabama will win. But I think Florida is a lot better than they played last Saturday. Mac Jones is playing for the Heisman, and whoever's defense plays better is going to help the opposing team's guy get the Heisman. So it could be Smitty, it could be Mac, but honestly, it could be Kyle Trask. If he has a Johnny Manziel type game against Alabama, he'd win the Heisman on Saturday.
I think when I look at this game between Florida and Alabama, we talk about the quarterbacks, and that's kind of the the interesting matchup to talk about. But I look to other playmakers. I look at Kyle Pitts, who's going to be able to match up with him. He's a matchup problem. I certainly think he's going to be available for this SEC championship game. And I think if Alabama is able to stop this passing attack on defense, so I point the finger kind of at Alabama's defense. And if they're continuing to play at this level, championship level defense, which I feel they're playing right now, I think they certainly create a lot of opportunities for Alabama's offense, who I feel is a buzzsaw, as I said, to really run away with this game. I think there's going to be a lot of points. I could see like a 63-28 matchup, something like that. I haven't even checked what the over-under is, but I know Alabama's favored by 14. I think they win by much more than that. Alabama has a lot to play for. These guys are dialed in, laser focused. How about this next matchup, Mick? It's also taking place on Saturday between Clemson and Notre Dame. We talked about it just a minute, but what's your kind of take? Are you feeling that Clemson takes it to them by more than 10 points?
Yeah, I think Trevor Lawrence is the most dangerous player in the college football playoff when Clemson beats Notre Dame. And I think that Clemson is licking their chops for an opportunity to get the Irish again. And I think that when college football happens, sometimes you lose games and you don't have a chance to rematch. Like last year when Alabama lost that game to LSU, a healthy Tua and a rematch would have been great. I think Alabama would have figured out a way to win. But Notre Dame has that. Trevor Lawrence wasn't in the game. I think he's got something to prove. The guy's a winner. But also for Notre Dame, too, whether you're talking about, just getting into the college football playoff or gaining respect, they took a giant step forward in the world of college football when they beat Clemson. And if they do it again, then all of a sudden now you're looking at Notre Dame as being a team that could possibly, I mean, when you talk about the fan base and the resources and the tradition, they could be a team that climbs up there with Alabama and Clemson and, some years LSU. I shouldn't even say LSU after the debacle that they had this year. But, those premier programs. And Notre Dame has been blue blood for a long time, so they're playing for that. But I think, just looking at this, Book's a good quarterback, but I think that Trevor Lawrence is going to put on a show.
Yeah, I do too. I think Trevor Lawrence is this kind of moment that he's been waiting for. I mean, this guy seems to be playing at a very high level right now. And I think he's looking for his opportunity to showcase, look, I'm still, I mean, at least in his opinion, he feels like he's the best quarterback in all of college football. He wants to prove he's that number one guy off the draft board. What better chance to do it against Notre Dame, who's undefeated, kind of a redemption game. He didn't play in that first matchup. So, look, Notre Dame's a good team. They've had a great season. They're going to probably get into the playoffs, in my opinion, but I think Clemson certainly takes it to them on Saturday. All right, I got a couple more for you, Mick, as we kind of round out. We're only going to go to the 30-minute mark here on the show, and then we have our recruiting show coming up at 7. But I wanted to just do some rapid fire with Mick real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
How about this matchup right here?
Got me excited. Hey, I know that matchup. That to me looks like a first-round playoff matchup, and I'd kind of like to see that. Last year, Ohio State would have beaten them had it not been for a terrible penalty in that game. Do you remember? Ohio State was just wiping the floor with Clemson. And Trevor Lawrence got hit, and they called it a targeting and a personal foul, and that changed the entire outcome of what that game was going to be with Ohio State and Clemson. So that to me feels like a 2-3 matchup in the college football playoff.
Yeah, there was kind of some reasoning why I did it like that, right? I think that when you look at this matchup, I mean, I think the TV ratings want to see this particular matchup. They want to see Trevor Lawrence go against Justin Fields, and look, Ohio State, in my opinion, they're going to get in this playoffs. I don't think it's right that they get into the playoffs. I think, you kind of looked at the fact that we've already talked about this a million times. They've only played 5 games. They'll probably have some dazzling performance against Northwestern and then get into the playoffs on Sunday. So be it. And if they're able to match up with Clemson, I'd be very interested to see this matchup just like the rest of the country. But I think Clemson too good in that capacity. We got a couple more going forward. How about this one right here? This kind of sounds like a 1 versus 4 in my opinion. Notre Dame versus Alabama.
Yeah, well, everyone's got kind of putting Notre Dame into this and kind of have them losing to Clemson, and I could see that. I could see that. And I wonder if they faced a talent as dynamic as Smitty, right? And it'd be interesting, like. Notre Dame got Alabama last time, and they weren't able to hang. And I'm sure that even if they couldn't beat Alabama, if they played a really good game and didn't get blown out, that it would help them. But I would like to see that. Look, I think these are the 2 best uniforms in college football.
I do like the uniform kind of combo, right? I mean, going in from, the crimson versus this white and the gold, I would love to see the matchup. I think, the ratings for college football would be unbelievable, kind of be a TV dream in that scenario. But I don't think Notre Dame would be ready for this Alabama offense. Look, Alabama, and this is what's scary. They put up 45 points against LSU. They put up 38 points against Arkansas in a game that they didn't even really play that well against Arkansas. Nick Saban held off the Dogs in that second half. I mean, think about how many points this team could score if they really want to. Everybody saw the social media footage about Jalen Waddle in the locker room. I have no idea if he's coming back. But I mean, the guy, he didn't have a boot on in the locker room. What does that mean? Probably nothing. Maybe he's ahead of schedule. I don't know. But imagine if Jalen Waddle somehow comes back on January 1st. How good is that Alabama offense going to be? Even better, right? Okay, one more for you, Mick, before we go. And let me find this one. Oh,
I like this, by the way. This is fun.
How about this?
Oh, that feels like number 5, man. 5. You know what I mean by 5? The 5th time that these teams have matched up in the college football playoff. And I've got room in my house for another Daniel Moore with Clemson and Alabama on there, right? NewLifeHeart.com. And by the way, great time to pick up one of those for Christmas when you're looking for those stocking stuffers. I love that term. Hard to shop for Alabama fans. Yeah, I could see this. Clemson against Alabama, Mac Jones against Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is, I'm sure, not happy that he isn't going to win the Heisman this year, or at least right now it doesn't appear that way because he is so talented and he's a great quarterback. He's got the flow. Mac Jones has been quiet and intelligent and considerate, and he's been able to get the ball to his playmakers. He's also playing behind the best offensive line in college football. This would be a great matchup. And I know that there would be people out there that would say, I don't want to see Alabama and Clemson again. I want to see Alabama and Clemson again. I would prefer that Alabama wins this one, though.
I think when you, look, I think we're all tired of Clemson versus Alabama, right? We've seen it before. Look, people are like, get control of this chat. Look, I'm talking about the college football playoffs. I don't have time to moderate these guys. If you want to be a moderator, hit me up on Bama Insider. But I mean, geez, let me do my job. I think when you look at Clemson and Alabama, I think I want to see this matchup. And here's a reason. I think because Mac Jones has an opportunity to go against Trevor Lawrence. And I think when we all look at Mac Jones, a lot of us kind of in the back of our mind are like, is this guy good enough to play in the NFL? And people have asked that question recently about a lot of NFL quarterbacks that are from Alabama. Jalen Hurts looked pretty good for the Philadelphia Eagles, and Tua's looked pretty good for the Dolphins. All right, so this guy is, when you talk about Mac Jones, I mean, him going against Trevor Lawrence, I love the matchup. And I think Nick Saban going against Dabo Swinney, I think Nick Saban would really want to go against Dabo Swinney and I think, if he can win another national championship or another couple of them going against Dabo Swinney, and let's face it, Clemson is, they're climbing. These guys recruit at a very high level. And if Nick Saban can take it to Dabo at 69 years of age, I think it's going to say a lot about where Nick Saban is and where he ends his career. He's the GOAT already, but I think he wants to take one back from Dabo Swinney.
Yeah, well, I mean, these have been the two premier programs, and I remember how tough it was for Clemson to finally get over the hump and beat Alabama. But I think Alabama's pretty motivated after the way that they played in that last national championship game. And this is the type of team that could really give Clemson a lot of trouble. Although I have nothing but respect for Dabo Swinney, Trevor Lawrence, and that program. Hey, guys, I want to tell all of you that we appreciate you hanging out with us. Kyle is coming up with Andrew Bone. Tomorrow is National Signing Day, and early and all day we're going to be here talking about this 2021 class, what's going on not only at Alabama but around the country. We're going to get in-depth on the players as they sign, as the letters of intent are sent in to Tuscaloosa. We'll have all those tidbits on each of those guys. It's going to be a really fun day, and just log on early right here on Bama Insider and on YouTube and Facebook and everywhere else, and we're going to have that for you with Kyle, Andrew Bone, and myself. So a little sneak peek of what we think's going to happen at 7 o'clock Central Time tonight with Kyle Henderson and Andrew Bone. So that's coming up next. Kyle, I know you're ready for tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody stay tuned, as we'll have wall-to-wall coverage right here on BamaInsider.com. This class is ranked number 1 in the Rivals.com recruiting rankings. You got the number 1 team in all of college football. And Alabama fans, I mean, they have 22, 23 guys that are going to sign tomorrow, which is incredible. That's like having 23 early Christmas presents, right, that you get to unravel before even Christmas time. I mean, this team is amazing. I mean, take a look again, and it all starts tomorrow in the state of Texas. You got Tommy Brockmeyer and James Brockmeyer ready to go, Robbie Oots, and then you got Terrence Ferguson, Kane Williams. So, look, there's no better place to get your recruiting coverage than at BamaInsider.com. And tomorrow, we're going to take you to another limit. So thank you very much for staying with us. Thank you very much for enjoying us. And, we appreciate it. We'll be back here at 7 o'clock with Andrew Bone talking recruiting. Anything else, Mick, while you wrap it up?
No, and we'll close it with this. We appreciate the thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. We really love all of you guys being here, whether you're Alabama fans or college football fans or just looking for some entertainment on a Tuesday night. We've got new content every single day of the week. Stay tuned for Kyle Henderson and Andrew Bone. And thanks for watching, guys. We'll talk to you later.